Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Bonus Points Podcast. I'm Joe Garrett, as always being joined by Ollie Guy. Oi, oi, Ollie.
Oi, oi. I don't have a themed one this time.
You don't, you look like
you do it like this, like...
You look like you did, really pointed to, you pointed, because we did a point and click adventure.
Yeah.
And which point and click adventure did we play?
You tell me, without reading it.
We played Superbrothers Sword and Sworcery EP.
Well done. Yes, we did. From 2011.
2011. It originally came. Well, I guess you're going to give the summary of its history.
Yeah, I can do the Wikipedia summary, but it really focused on the versions that were released. Have you looked at the Wikipedia page?
Yeah.
It's just like all about when they came out, so I cut it down. Superbrothers Sword and Sworcery EP is an adventure indie game created by Superbrothers and Capybara Games with music by Jim Guthrie. It was initially released for iOS devices, with a version for the PC, Mac and Android platforms released later. Additionally, a port to Nintendo Switch was released, combining both mobile and computer-like control schemes, as well as adding controller support. The iOS and Android versions make use of the device orientation during gameplay.
It's like saying, like, you're reading the Wikipedia article for like a bun, and it's like the scrumstidious scrumdidious bun.
It's just like that.
But you gotta look up what it is, and it's like it can be found in these bakeries. But sometimes it's like, but what is it?
Yeah.
Like,
They don't give anything away. They do not give anything away.
And neither will we.
No, it's going to be a mystery. It's a mystery game. You played on the Switch, didn't you?
I played on the Switch. Well, I played it originally on phone, back in
2011.
I don't know if it was 2011 because that's too long ago to remember anything.
Well, I remember. So the reason, because I picked this one. So basically, the first reason I picked it is because you were like, "Oh, please do something short. Please do something mobile, so I can play it while I'm traveling." And I was like, "Okay, anything for you, first of all. Yes, I will do that." But also,
can I just say I've got a Steam Deck, so it's basically any game is included within that.
Also, you really wanted to do a mobile game.
I did.
And we ended up, neither of us played it on mobile.
Yeah, but it feels like it's Home's mobile.
Yeah, you can definitely tell when you're playing it.
Yeah.
But I remember when the trailer for this game originally came out, I was at university doing video game design.
Thinking I'd love to do a podcast on this one day.
When
the time is right.
My old mate Joe, who at this point I probably haven't heard from for about a year and a half, I'd love to get in contact with him. Anyway, everyone on the course got iPod Touches. And then this trailer for this game came out and I was like, they're making games like that on an iPod Touch? And I was absolutely floored by it. And I've actually taken that trailer down, but I managed to find it on Vimeo, the original one. And then I just never played it until now. Although I did have it on Steam and I played it for 20 minutes at some point, but...
Yeah. so I played it back in the day, but I didn't finish it.
Okay.
I think I probably got up to a bit where the moon cycle was affecting my game, is my guess, but it got to a point where I didn't quite remember it. But to be fair, and we will go into obviously a bit further, but once you've played the first maybe half an hour, you've kind of seen a lot of the environments anyway. I had I did get some nostalgia going back to this game, especially the soundscape is very distinct.
It's so good.
So I think that I remembered it. If you asked me about it a few weeks ago, any specifics, I'd have probably struggled. But going back to it, it's oh yeah, it is like this. Oh yeah, the writing is like this. So I had quite a few of those moments going through.
Yeah, the main thing I could remember for some reason was the fact that back in the day, every line of dialogue could be tweeted from inside the game with a button.
Oh, okay.
So every single text box had a tweet button. And then that's how they did the marketing for it. So people would tweet, because the writing is all whimsy and weird. So people were obviously tweeting it out. So they had to have every line under the old Twitter limit that was 140. And now this time when you start it up, it does say at the beginning, social media is not what it used to be. There's a line about it.
It doesn't say, do you want to do an X post?
Are you X verified? You could buy it through the game. They put a line in it just to be we don't like social media anymore and we don't want to be any part of it, so we're backed up.
That's funny.
Should we describe how the game is played?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, unless you have something you want to say, you look like you do.
I was just going to say one of the other, just while we're talking about the differences of the versions that's changed.
Cool.
So one of the things I was going to say as well is back in the kind of phone and iPod Touch version, there was a lot about switching perspective. When you go into combat, you'd actually flip your phone vertical, but for the rest of the game, you kind of have to play it horizontal, which was quite rare for a game back then to like force you to play in kind of that widescreen perspective. And at least for the Switch version, I'm assuming with the PC version, that's the only way you're just flipping around your monitor.
My Mac can just flip it.
Yeah, so that's kind of one of the key differences. But that was one of the things I was a little bit worried about going into for Switch. Was like, oh, am I going to have to be like holding a Switch vertical?
I think if you take the Joy-Cons off, you can play like that on the Switch.
Okay, maybe you're going to switch it on because I did have the Joy-Cons off sometimes.
Oh, okay.
So.
Okay, yeah. But no, on the Mac, you just right-click and it flips the screen. It just basically turns the size of the screen black and zoomed in.
Okay.
But anyway, what was I going to say?
You were going to just explain about what it's like to play.
Yeah. So basically, it's like a very, very light touch point-and-click game. It's like, if you ever played a point-and-click game and you're like, what the hell is the monkey wrench? How do I put it in this thing or whatever else? It's not really like that. It's more like you're kind of prodding and plucking at digital paintings. That's kind of most of the game.
Yeah, there's no like inventory, there's no dialogue trees, there's none of what you expect from kind of traditional point-and-click adventure games, apart from you navigate a player by clicking and pointing, and it is puzzles. But as Ollie said, they're very light puzzles to what you may be expecting.
And it's also a little bit funny, which I associate with point-and-click games. A bit of comedy involved as well. Yeah. A bit of funny writing. And then the other side of it is it has combat. And the combat is you have, well, for me, on my version on the PC, there was basically a big shield button and a big sword button, and I just had to click between them to do two different things. It's pretty simple, but like I actually think it's quite fun. So I didn't hate it. I thought it was all right. But you don't do very much of it. I think you probably draw your sword maybe 5 or 6 times total in the whole game. Yeah,
and there's like a few boss fights throughout it as well. And then kind of a few almost options, like depending on how you play, it can like affect how much combat you do. There's basically a thing you got to avoid, and if it touches you, you get in combat. But if you just switch screen, like it stops. It does like Metal Gear Solid rules that they forget you exist if you just leave like the screen. So if you wanted to do more combat, you always could. But it is extremely light. It is same on Switch. You just clicking on either the sword or the shield to block or attack. There's a few different types of enemies that will have different things. There's almost like a bit of a rhythm game element to aspects of it as well.
Which is super cool. The audio visual side of it is, for me, personally, audio and visual of this I'd put as a 10 out of 10. Like, it is absolutely stunning to look at. The music is incredible. The sound effects are incredible. The random bits of lines that are voiced are also like done really well. Like all of the
they always kind of took me off guard because there's not much. Sometimes you like click on somewhere, they'll be like, "And how you doing there?" And I'm like, "Oh god," because I was playing the whole thing with headphones in as well. So like on the train or something, I'm like, "Oh god, hello."
Yes, and the characters have a really modern way of speaking, which is weird because it's like medieval setting, but they all speak and all the dialogue boxes and everything are all like very contemporary. Like, I think this game, it kind of goes on 2 different lenses, right? It's obviously a video game, but it's also a piece of like really contemporary art. Like, as in, it's when it came out, it was so present and so modern. It used like loads of different features of the iPhone. It could post to Twitter. It was super high resolution graphics, but at the same time, it was like pretty old school.
Yeah, well, it was. So it's pixel art, but like not like 16-bit. I don't know what the equivalent would be. Like, you can see individual pixels, but they're quite small. A lot of the views of the world are quite zoomed out, and also quite like abstract in terms of like character proportions. Like someone's arm might go within like where the elbow would be, like the whole line is just sort of misaligned, or like their arms kind of coming from a weird place, which is done really, really well. But then also they use like a lot of non-pixel art, like a lot of pixel art game. They're like, okay, pixel art is our tool. That's what we're going to use. There's some characters in the game, like there's like sprites that are just kind of more traditional drawn 2D art, and like visual effects. Like sometimes there's like smoke or something, or like the sky will have an effect that isn't pixel art. So it kind of picks and chooses whatever effect it wants to create.
Yeah, it looks amazing.
It looks
and
great.
It's not that many areas. There's probably maybe 8 or 9 screens, but like it's effective.
Yeah, I think it's probably a few more than that. But
it's not many.
Limited.
It's not many. It's very limited, but I think it's a memorable environment.
Yeah.
Just wish there was a little bit more of it, but it is memorable.
And it's also very interactive. Like if you tap on a bush, it will shake.
Yeah,
if you like
yeah,
tap
yeah.
on the water, there'll be like little like ripples coming out from where you tap. And like the game is, a lot of the puzzles are kind of about doing those sort of things. A lot of the puzzles are about just sort of keep tapping on things on the screen, and then eventually you'll kind of work out what it wants you to
or
do.
like plucking waterfalls, going between rainbows. A few things didn't work that well on the computer because some of them would require 2-finger inputs, but obviously I'm using a mouse.
Okay.
So a couple of bits.
Another mouse.
Yeah. A couple of bits I had to look up where I got stuck would be like, oh, put your fingers on either side of the door and like open it. But obviously I can't do that.
So how'd you do it?
You just do it on one side. But it's not
then it does both.
It does both, yeah, because it's not as intuitive. Like, we get stuck on things like that.
I didn't think about that. So I was actually thinking. So I think the touch controls aren't great. I think they're a little bit imprecise. And there's times when like I want to move the character, but I start charging him up to do something, or I'm like I'm double tapping, but he's not moving for whatever reason. And there's one bit like it's not very often at the end of the game where you kind of have to be trying to move quite quickly that really accelerates it. So I was actually thinking I would probably recommend playing on PC because I think a mouse input's easier, to the point where I actually ended up, even though I'm playing on the Switch and I could be using the touchscreen, I actually ended up just using the analog stick as a virtual, which is not great in its own right, but for like precise things like these little sprites that I mentioned earlier, when they're moving up screen, you could have to tap them quite precise. I found it easier with the analog sticks. Like at least I could see a small cursor and not my big finger in the way. I think that like with the touch devices, point and click games in terms of the interface have been done much better, and it always felt just kind of a little bit frustrating moving around the world.
Yeah, I think it feels like it came out in 2011.
Yeah.
It's kind of, there's also the running and walking mechanic that like I just couldn't really get the hang of.
Yeah, so to move the character, you can hold down on someone on the screen that isn't the character and kind of slide around and then they move. But if you're able to get your cursor like a certain distance away from them, your character will speed up.
Right.
But then once you can double tap the exit, they'll then also go quick. But then, as I mentioned earlier, you can also hold the character to charge things up or tap things in the environment. It's the things I know you say like, oh, it feels like a game from 2011, but 2D games generally felt pretty good in 2011.
Yeah,
so
I mean, it's a touchscreen element is what's the problem. It's trying to use a touchscreen.
But there are, like I don't think you can excuse it too much for the time period, because I'm sure there were like touchscreen games were pretty common by the DS had been out for a long time. Like those sorts of inputs had been encountered. Maybe it was just they needed to increase the leniency on it's a single tap to move, but you hold to do so. I guess I think that's somewhere where there could have been a bit of I don't know, like user experience improvement for controlling the character around the screen. Yeah,
well, this game, it took a really long time to develop in comparison to other games on that platform at the same time. Mm-hmm. So did you watch, they did a talk at GDC, did you watch any of that?
No, I've not seen that.
Okay, so basically...
Oh, you got to be full of facts today.
I am full of facts, yeah, I am. Basically, most iOS games at that time, because obviously it came out in 2011, but it started being developed before then, so really early in the iOS life cycle, they were taking 1 or 2 months to finish a game, whereas this game took a year and a half, and it was like unheard of budget, unheard of timescale, with a really small team that was led by someone who wasn't a game developer, the artist that did it. So he basically wanted to make a game where he was like, how can I get people to walk around my paintings? And then that's kind of like where this idea came from for this game.
Now you say that?
Yeah,
I'm like, no, that is what it does feel like that. It doesn't feel like it's made by a game designer. Basically it's an artist.
Was like, I want people to hang out in landscapes, look at geometric shapes, and listen to music. His favourite artist was Jim Guthrie, who did the music. So he basically reached out to him and was like, I'm going to try and make a game. I don't know what I'm doing. Jim Guthrie instantly got on board. Then he went to GDC, and there's an interview that I will link where he was basically like, it was the hardest thing to do at GDC because he was just an artist and he had to walk around and be like, does someone want to make my game?
Yeah.
And then Capybara, who are now known as Cappy Games, they all got on board because they were only doing like really low rent, like licensed games. Like they were doing like the iPhone version of like Pirates of the Caribbean Match 3 game. And they were like, we want to make proper games. We don't want to do this anymore. And then they all met at GDC. And then this is kind of where this came from. So luckily they had all that licensed money to pay for the game development, because otherwise it probably never would have come out.
Like one of the things I realized from the puzzles, and now you said it makes so much sense, is that like a lot of the puzzles feel like they designed a landscape And then they were like, how can you turn this into a puzzle?
Yes,
it's like,
exactly.
tap the bushes in order, or like swipe on the sky. Like it feels, it doesn't feel intentional, especially like that one with like the waterfalls.
Yeah.
They really don't feel like they were arranged for a puzzle, and like there's one waterfall that doesn't do the plucking thing. Like there's and like it doesn't feel like very intentional design for those basically these puzzles, which is like basically the puzzle of the game, is you go to a screen, you hold on your character, and they do the Song of Sorcery.
You do Sworcery, Sworcery side of it.
And then you're kind of basically, you can then, while in this mode, you can't move around, but you can tap on things and swipe things, and basically you're trying to find some sort of hidden mechanic to make a sprite appear. Then you tap on the sprite 3 times and you've collected it.
Yeah.
And you do that like 9 times throughout the game. And that's kind of the puzzle. And to the point where this game is probably total length less than 2 hours. Yeah. And it got a little bit repetitive.
I will say on the tapping of environment things, not as boring as you'd think, but also not great. I was like, some of them, doing the rainbow and stuff. I was like, oh, this is like quite cool. Like, doing the guy playing the guitar and there's like the tree strings and you're like doing them. I was like, it's cool, but it is, there's not a lot.
There's one which is there's like a reflection in the lake. There's like really good reflections. They're kind of like just perfect reflections in the lake, but it looks really good because the art looks good and you get to see it twice. And it's basically, you're kind of doing spot the difference between the reflection and the actual world. And I was like, this is an actual puzzle, but that's like kind of really the only one that goes to that length to be a puzzle, and even that's like a kid's puzzle.
This is what I was like getting at when I was saying like kind of through 2 lenses of like it's a video game and it's also a piece of contemporary art, and in terms of like being a piece of art that's like how do I get my art into the hands of as many people as possible? It's incredibly successful. Like he probably couldn't have got a better result if he tried. Like the game sold 1.5 million copies, obviously made its budget back. Loads of people saw his artwork, loads of people saw the music, all good. As a video game, I don't know. I don't know so much. I mean, I did enjoy it and I did think it was interesting, but the 2 hours I spent of it was kind of enough, What did you think generally? Yeah,
I'm in complete agreement with you. I think that we can't understate how good like the presentation is, that even though the gameplay isn't particularly engaging and sometimes goes beyond that to be frustrating and actually could maybe even detract from the artwork, because rather than looking at it being pretty, you're just a bit annoyed at interacting with it. But the fact that the audio and visual experience is so like high quality and so unique, I don't really have any direct comparisons to this game in terms of the visual style. I think he absolutely succeeded in his challenge.
Yeah, definitely. What did you think of the fact that the game was split into 4 sessions?
I think it was like, from just a very practical sense, from the way I was playing, because I was traveling a lot.
Yeah,
it would you'd play and then it would kind of end almost like 4 chapters. And it was said, hey, that's the end of this chapter. It would show you how far of a percentage through the game you are. And then sometimes when loading the next session, it'd be like, this session's going to be like 45 minutes.
Oh, so good.
And it's like, I was good because I don't want to split up halfway through. And I was like, I got 45 minutes. I could do this. And even, I think it only does it once, unless it's when you have a gap. It does like a recap. Maybe it does that every time.
Oh, no, I never saw that.
Oh, so I got one time. Maybe it's because I did leave a longer gap between it, because it is tracking time. We'll talk about that later. It was like, hey, welcome to session 3. In the last session, this is what happened. Okay. They did this and this and this, almost like a sort of Telltale style recap. Right. Or Earthbound is another one that kind of does that as well.
Because it also has you get an item in game, I think it's called the Megatome, where you can basically read the thoughts of everyone that you've met. And that is time stamped. So it will be if you want to scroll back and see what happened, it will be days of yore will be a really long time ago. It'll be just now. And then all the characters will have something, even the dog. Has bark, bark, bark. If you scroll down far enough, he starts talking.
Yeah, he starts self-contemplating and stuff.
Yeah, so the game has a lot of quite cool little touches like that. And I think the writing generally was it sparks curiosity, and then that's it. You don't need anything more than that. I don't think there's any deeper meaning to be found here. It's just
it's funny because of the comparison. It's not what you would expect from looking at the game and its setting. You wouldn't expect the dialogue. I've got a few quotes. I got the dog thinking bark, bark, bark.
Yeah.
There's a bit where it's just something weird happens. It says like confused question mark, excellent, keep calm and carry on. And then one of them was like, there's a bit where someone told you to go get sprites, and it just said, we were like, grown, not another fetch quest, am I right? But like spelled like, am I right in one word? Because that's the other thing is the game is a rare game in second person, not first or third person. It's told in second person.
Do you think that's because you are meant to be
part
of it, or?
I think it's almost like trying to involve you in it more to make it personal. So basically what it says is it's written from like the character that you're seeing on screen, but it says, we did this.
Yes.
We went to that and then we did this. And so, yeah, as you say, it could either be saying you are that character, but I don't think that really makes as much sense.
Well, my understanding just in terms of the mechanics was that when the Scythian, the character of the Scythian, like when she's praying, it's calling upon you as in your finger to like, so there's obviously, you're connected, right? So.
Yeah, you are involved. It's like we're doing this together. And there's even a few fourth wall breaks where it kind of basically mentions you and like, oh, I felt like I was doing it with someone watching over me or
someone's
guiding
controlling me or like.
Yeah. So I kind of feel like it's sort of saying like, hey, it's, I'm doing it, but like we're kind of doing it together and you have input in this just to kind of make the story feel a little bit more personal to you, was my guess.
Quite cool. I think I don't know what the saying is exactly, but what's that saying that's like it doesn't add the sum of its parts are better than the actual. It has so many good ideas and so much cool stuff, but for some reason it doesn't quite add up the way I wanted it to. Like,
you say some reason. I think it's always. I think some of the game design isn't. That's there's all these bars of a certain quality. The game design is lower, and that is bringing down the average.
Yeah, because everything's like, except for the actual gameplay, it's all like, 10, 10, 10,
so
10.
Funny. Everything apart from the game is.
I know. It's crazy. Also, I feel like the guy who separates the sessions out, the guy in the suit,
the architect,
I kind of wanted something to happen with him, and like I'm not like after like answers or like a definitive solution, but just nothing happens with him. Like at one point he even turns up in the game because he normally appears in like
do you want to kind of set up what he is like, because he's especially early on, like he's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's like mysterious character. When you start the game, he's like sitting in a throne or something, isn't he? And you like tap him, and then he kind of like guides you through it. So he jumps up and is like, oh, this is Sword and Sworcery EP. You're going to be, I can't remember exactly what he says, but it's like he talks you through the game.
And he's like wearing a suit.
He's wearing a suit and he's smoking a cigar.
Yeah, so it's like he's obviously like a much more modern character.
Yeah, and then so you meet him at the beginning and end of every session. And then in, I think maybe the final session, he appears in the game world. Yeah. And I was like, oh, like we're going to get something here, and then nothing really comes of it. He just disappears again. But
also throughout, in that megatome where you can hear people's thoughts, you see his thoughts. Yes. And so he's often, sometimes comical, but also like a guiding figure. The game really doesn't want you to get stuck. They're constantly pushing you in the right direction and telling you what to do. And saying, if you do get stuck, read the megatome. Like you could tell, obviously, the gameplay is the vessel to keep you seeing more art and hearing more music. And, they don't want anyone to get stuck on these puzzles.
Did you get stuck?
No, so there was the bit. Should we talk about the moon bit?
Yeah, if you'd like to, you go ahead.
Yeah, so the one of the things with this game is there's certain sprites that you can't get unless there's a certain phase of the moon, and so it seems like they're basically
in real life.
Yeah, sorry, I should say. Yeah, like in actual the actual moon, the real moon, our moon that we all share.
We all see the same one.
Different times. So it seems like it's basically, as far as I can tell, split into three categories of like full moon, like total eclipse, or anything in between. Is what it seems like. And so the game will literally say like, "Hey, 7 days till the bright moon." I think is the way they phrase it for like a full moon. And so, to get certain sprites to solve certain puzzles, you need to wait until the full moon or the dark moon, which isn't actually an eclipse because that might be a bit. It's like, we're going to wait 3 years to finish this game. But then you do find like you do get this key to like this moon grotto. It's called, and you can basically just, whenever you want, just switch the moon phases. So it's really cool they make you do that. I kind of, in a way, I wish they committed to it, but also I'm glad they didn't because we wouldn't have finished the game in time.
I think it's kind of a difficult balance, but like you're not going to know about the moon grotto unless you look it up. So it's a bit like if you didn't know about it, you would just play it the way you would just wait, and you'd be like, okay, I can wait 3 days.
Well, no, I did find the Moon Grotto. I didn't.
Oh, you just found it naturally.
Well, I found there's a boar.
Yeah, there's a boar. Yeah,
that does the office dance.
I don't know why he does that. Yeah, he does like like
yeah.
Yeah.
And then you end up in a fight with him.
Yeah.
And so I spared him, and and I got a key.
Yes, I did the same. Yeah.
And then you just go to the door.
Right, but
because you found that I found the door on the way up anyway, so I knew I was looking for a key for that door.
Yeah.
Because right at the beginning you walk past, you're like, a locked door. Then I get the key. Like it's not like I don't think it's very obscure.
No, but also if you had just picked it up and it was like come back in 4 days, and then you just came back in 4 days, the puzzle would basically do itself.
I kind of wish that. I don't know. I mean, they probably got it right. Like I kind of. Once you go in there and it's just so easy. You basically just like
sit down.
You just wait and it will just be to the right moon.
Yeah.
And it's like it's cool that they do it. I do kind of wish they committed to it.
I agree.
Because that would make it much more interesting. Now it's more like, oh yeah, if you want you can wait, but like you don't really need to.
I wonder if they added that after.
Possibly. It's quite entrenched in the artwork.
True.
Yeah, I wonder if they did. Like there's pros and cons to both. I think like I could imagine a review coming out at the time being like, oh, and I had to wait 5 days. How annoying. So like I could imagine it rubbing people the wrong way. But I think we're probably both in the camp that like it's more interesting because most games don't force you to wait for a full moon to solve a puzzle.
No, and the way it's broken up into sessions as well, it's like it's obviously very intentional that they're like, put the game down, go and do something else and come back in a few days. Like don't binge it. Basically, and the fact that it's on mobile as well was on mobile probably helped with that. Yeah, it's probably
the iPhone battery life. Like genuinely, if they want you to be flipping the phone up and down, you don't want it plugged in. I wonder if that was actually a limit. Like I don't know if you remember what those used to be like. You would probably get like 4 hours playing that game, from a full battery or something.
You probably would. They said that they were they tried to do a Nintendo, and basically they got the iPhone. So you got an iPod, original iPod. And this guy, Superbrothers, this one guy, and he was like, this iPod is the future, and iTunes is the future of art distribution. So from then, he decided, I'm going to make a game for this device. But when he got the iPhone or the iPod Touch, I don't know which one it was, what he tried to do with the team, there was only 6 of them, is they tried to do what Nintendo does and be like, what's every single thing on this that we can use? Like, okay, it's internet enabled, it has a gyroscope, it has a touchscreen. Obviously, didn't use the camera.
Flash the torch.
Flash the torch. Is the torch on? Yes. Okay, you pass. But yeah, pretty cool that they bothered to do all that. We haven't really talked about the actual content of the game, like the dream world and like the woeful errand, which is what you're basically doing. That's the main mission. What did you? To me, so basically the story is you're trying to find these 3 triangles for some reason. And you're going up a mountain to like basically deliver these 3 triangles. But when you go to the top of the mountain, spoilers, you will die. And to me, it felt like even though you can't grasp the gravity of the situation, you get that it's important. And for me, that was enough. Like I was like, okay, it's important to these people, so therefore it's important to me.
Yeah, because you don't know why you're trying to do it. And also in doing it, you befriend a couple local people, Logfella, Dogfella,
yeah.
And Girl.
Oh, she's called Samay in the PC version.
But okay. So, so you kind of befriend them, but you also kind of like, you're kind of messing things up for them because you make it so they're storming and things keep going wrong, but they keep kind of helping you. So they seem like they kind of are on board with what you're trying to do.
They're like, whatever it is you're doing needs to be done. So, because they let you stay in their house.
Yeah.
And the Scythian, the character he plays, is a woman. And in the dream world, she's like in a relationship with Logfella, but in the real world, they're not together, which I thought was like, it's interesting enough, like it's not like, oh, it's just so deep, but it's like quite interesting. And then in the real world, Logfella asks you out on a date with a voice line, like a voiced line. Did you get that?
No, I don't remember it.
So you walk past him and he's like, oh yeah, you know that village down the road? I think they're going to open like a animal versus gladiator arena, and like I thought it'd be pretty cool if he talks ready to just walk away and it's like his voice is like trailing off. He's like, oh, okay, all right, that's fine. I was just like,
well, like his actual voice.
I definitely remembered that line, yeah.
And also, when you say in the dream world, like we don't mean like, and you go through the portal to the dream world. It's like, no, you go and sit in front of the fire and have a nap, and it's a really slick transition. There's basically what I assume is meant to be like a record, like spinning, and then like it will like because it's got to be, because then it will switch from like the A side to the B side. Then you're in the dream world, which looks a little bit different from the main world. There's not a big distinction between the style of the two worlds. There's like in-game differences, like the boar only shows up in the dream world as far as I could tell.
Yeah, the boar. I don't know what was going on with that office dance. Like, what a weird reference to Paul. Because they're not even... I mean, I understand if they were a British developer, but they're not... They're like Canadian, so it's like, where is this come from? Like,
it's so jarring because it's creating such an atmosphere, and like I'm sure Ollie would have played some of the sounds when editing this together, but like it puts you in such like a vibe, but it's quite like a dark game. Like I mean, like literally dark, as in like it's not very sunny. And then you suddenly see this like kind of comical looking bear doing that dance. Also, like some of the other references you kind of mentioned, these artifacts you're trying to find being triangles, like seem very referential to the Triforce. And then there's also something like the attack sounds, like they just sound like Link, like just like ha ha, like those sounds are like so like Zelda and Link, and so I think there is like a Zelda connection to it as well.
Did you see the massive Twin Peaks reference? You might not have recognised it.
Yeah, but point out to me. I see.
So you basically in the dream world go to the gate that you can't get open the whole time. It won't open, and then the bear opens it, and inside you hear like rock music. And you go in, and it's like a pink hazy gig, and it's like the music is just from Twin Peaks, like the rock music. And then when you speak to the girl, it says, "Oh, we saw Samay dancing, and she said, 'Fire, walk with me.'"
I was
literally like, "Oh my god, they've got me!" Like it's so good. And then I've also been listening to the soundtrack, and the song is called "Ode to the Room," and the song on the Twin Peaks soundtrack is called "The Pink Room." So it's like they've obviously just like lifted as much as they could from that, but I was like loving that.
It is weird, all the contemporary references once again with the setting of the game. Like, I mean, it's in line with the dialogue, and the writing of the game aligns more with that. It's really only like the visuals that don't align with it, because even like the music is like very modern sounding. It's all kind of electric, kind of like deep synth sounds. Some really great ones. Like there's a sound that they use the same like song a lot. I think they do it on like some of the transitions, but also whenever you kind of get one of the triangles, you defeat the boss. It does like it's kind of like a build. It has like the boom, like it's like that. Like almost gives me chills.
Yeah,
like
every time I did it, I was
like,
yes, like I'm so good. Even though you do the same boss fight every time, I was like, I'm so brilliant. And it would say like, "We got the Trigon, we are awesome." And I was like, yes, we are.
And also like just sometimes when you're exploring the world, like it will just have like the music will come in, and there's a time early on where there's like this wolf chasing you, and it's got really good sound as you're going. But I will say, like, because obviously they're making a big thing, like they're calling it EP and really focusing on the artist, like it doesn't sound like an album. Like it sounds like video game music. Like it's not like, oh, here's this track that I'd really recognize. Like it sounds like good video game music, but like made for a video game. It doesn't sound like, oh, there's this great album, how can we repurpose it into a game? Like it feels custom made for the game.
The guy that wrote it, Jim Guthrie, is a TV and film composer. So I guess that's probably where that's coming from. He doesn't write like, pop songs. He writes scores for things like that.
Yeah, I saw he did for the game Below.
Yep,
he did that.
That's Capybara as well. Same developer, same publisher.
Okay, and then he also did these are the two from ones that I know. IMDb, there's a lot more, but also did Indie Game the movie. If you ever saw that,
really?
He did the music for that. Yeah, I mean, I love that documentary.
Yeah,
be honest, can't remember the music, but if I ever watch that again, I'll be listening out for it. Yeah, our old Jim. Good old Jim.
He's in the game as well, isn't he?
Yeah, you find him just sort of playing the guitar. One of the great moments. You can kind of sit with him. You can tap on like all of like the trees around you, and they make little chimes, and you just chill with him for a bit. He's like, do you want to sit and like listen for a bit? And I sat like, oh, what's going to happen? It's like, I don't know. We're just hanging out.
We're just going to hang out.
Yeah, as far as I know, unless there's some secret. Yeah, we just hang out, listen to the music. It's good.
Did you know that Superbrothers have released another game?
No.
It's on PS5. It's called Jet. I think it's called Jet: The Other Shore, and it's a sci-fi game.
Okay.
And it's full 3D. You fly a plane around planets.
It's not like there's a Far Shore game or something.
That might be that. It's called Jet with two T's. And even though it's fully 3D and like obviously I'm running on a PS5. It has quite a lot of the same language as
Jet the Far Shore. Okay, together we know about this game.
The visual language of the game, like if you ever see a video of it, it looks like Sword and Sorcery. Like the cursor is the same.
Okay,
and it has like a lot of the same motifs and stuff. So I'm thinking about giving it a try because I feel like this is a good first run.
Yep,
this is a good first draft of the game. Cappy, who helped out with the development and published it, they are very fond of this game. This being their first proper game ever. They also, since this game, not arrogantly, I would say they sound self-assured. They don't want to be compared to other indie developers. As of this game, they want to be compared to AAA. And they're basically what they said was, you don't want to be like, we made the best movie with less than 10 people. You want to say we made the best movie. So that's why they try and...
Yeah, I get it, but it's almost just like disparaging to like indie devs.
Oh yeah, well, I would say it's the way I read it was that they were very self-assured rather than being like we're better than them.
Yeah, but like when it was like Hades was up with like a great shot of winning Game of the Year.
Yeah,
I don't think people were like, oh, it's great like for an indie game. I was like, oh no, it's just like on the same level as I think it was Last of Us Part 2 ended up beating it out.
Yeah,
but like it's just like as good of a game as that. Or like when I'm listing like my top games of all time, I'm not like, well, I'll include Hollow Knight because that's the best one made by a small team. It's like,
yeah,
no, I don't think for most people, like, and I think we'd certainly be included in that. Like when we're like critiquing an indie game, we don't have that asterisk.
Oh no,
so
no,
much.
Of course, no. But I would say it does go the other way. Like, do you remember when Baldur's Gate 3 got like best indie game, and everyone was like, it's not an indie game, doesn't count.
Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, it was like up for best indie game because it's independent.
You sure you're not thinking of Dave the Diver?
No, Baldur's Gate 3. Because it's independent. It wasn't published. It's published by them. So everyone was like, oh yeah, it's not really
even though it's got like 10-cent money.
Yeah, so it's like, no, David Diver's got 10-cent money.
I swear, no, Larian's got...
Is it?
Yeah, it wasn't published by 10-cent, but they got 10-cent. They got 10-cent money.
Well, either way, it works the other way. You know, like...
I mean, that's down to the looseness of like the indie classification. Because when someone says indie game, like technically it means an independent, you know, but it's sort of like that's like a word getting out of date because that's not what culture refers it to. And so it's and it's too late to come up with a new term because it's too entrenched now.
Yeah.
And so I think that's just like the meaning of indie game needs to like in people's consensus update.
Yeah. I mean, this was a crazy time. Like when this came out, got Indie Game the movie, obviously it was roughly around the same time as I watched that at uni.
Yeah, so that would be, so was that like Fez, was it Super Meat Boy, and it was Braid. Yeah,
Braid.
So they were like the three indie games featured in Indie Game the movie, just to give you a sort of idea of the type. Like I think Braid was the big one that really kind of opened the door, certainly in the console space for like, game made by one person could be like critically acclaimed and sell a lot of copies.
Yeah, there's a really sweet picture of the team that made this game all on stage accepting an award and all of them are crying. And in the captions like, we didn't realise...
Was it second place?
Yeah. Best game for less than 10 people.
Go on, Baldur's Gate 2!
Yeah. But it says the caption of the picture is something like, oh, at this time we realised that we were at the front of something new. And it's like, God, you were like on the cutting edge when it came out, which is obviously it's respectable.
And now you see games like Outer Wilds or Undertale or Cuphead that are like among like just in the same kind of like they don't take up different mental space in my head.
No, not at all.
You know, I've been playing Astrobot. Next, I'm going to be playing Plucky Squire. Like I'm not going into it like thinking about the who published them or the team behind them.
Yeah. Oh, the only thing I forgot to mention is when I asked you if you got stuck. I got stuck on that stupid ducks puzzle.
The what one?
Ducks. It's like lead ducks into water.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what I was doing. I was like, I had to look it up. And then even when I knew the solution, I was like, is this actually working?
You just guide them to like the mum, right?
I don't know. I think so. I think that's what you're meant to do. But I was like, and they were swimming away. And I was like, does that mean it's done? Or
I think that's maybe more intuitive on the... touch, I reckon.
Yeah.
Because you're doing a lot of like, it's easier to like slide around with the touch. Like, I wasn't like, oh, I looked at it and worked out what to do. I was like, obviously the ducks are the thing here, so let's just mess around with them. And then I saw that you can move them, and so I kind of grouped them together.
That's how all puzzles go, really, isn't it? It's like, what's the thing? How do I play with it?
There's a lot of puzzles that seem to be like, unless I was missing something, like tap the bushes. There's one order you need to tap them in, and that's the whole puzzle. So it's like you tap 1, and then you tap 3, and then they all disappear. It's like a 1, 4. That one. And I was like, well, is there any other indication other than trial and error?
No, there isn't. Very simple.
Because there's one that I overthought when I can't remember what it was. There was something else like happening. I think there were like trees or bushes or something, but they were like going doon doon. They were like doing a thing, and I was like, oh, I get it. They do the thing and I copy it. So because they were like dun 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 dun, and they would go dun 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 dun. We're like, no, and I'm like, what? And I was like, oh no, it's just another one where I just have to get the order, because that would have been like a fine puzzle to include. It was like a very simple memory puzzle, but no, it was the same as the others, but a bit confusing because they were digging, but they obviously just thought it looked cool and sounded cool, which it did.
Okay, last thing I've got. We knew it would be a short one. It's a short game.
Mm-hmm.
Have you played any other Capybara games?
I'm not aware of them. Like
I played Sound Shapes.
Sound Shapes, yes, on Vita.
PS3 Vita, yeah.
I have played that.
That was the game that released straight after this. They were making them.
Oh, that's a great game. That's an excellent game.
You can kind of see the line between this game and that.
Yeah, it's got like a level creator in, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Super Time Force was another one of the big games.
No, but I have heard of it.
Below and Grindstone.
Grindstone, that was the big Apple Arcade hit.
Yes.
That's probably, that was like their braid of Apple Arcade.
Yeah, they'd probably like to think it was Sword and Sworcery. Maybe it's not.
Well, Apple Arcade, I mean, they had like their subscription thingy.
I think that's what I've got. I've got one where we had a few people play along, but I don't think they stuck with it.
Well, one other quick thing I'll just point out for, in case any of you from this conversation are interested to play it, the Switch version, one, I would say, doesn't control great on the Switch. I would probably, even with the weird oddities with mouse and keyboard, I wish I played on there. Like, because I had my laptop, I could have played on my laptop. I would rather play with that. Also, it didn't load for me the first time.
Yes.
I went to play it, and I looked up online, and other people have the issue. I re-downloaded it a couple times, and I had to restart my Switch. Like, it wouldn't be a big deal, but I was just trying to do it on train Wi-Fi, and it was like I'd sat aside my time to play it, so it was a bit annoying. Eventually it worked, and it would load up the beginning. It would say about like there's a screen that came up about how you control the game, then it would fade to black, and then just nothing would happen, which was the same as what people said online. I did get it working on Switch, but if you have got it on Switch and you're running into that, try re-downloading it or doing like a hard turn off of the Switch. I think might have been the thing in the end that fixed it for me.
Yeah, I think PC version's probably fine. Don't play it with a magic mouse like I did, because it's really sensitive, and my camera, you'll see in the video version, is constantly zooming in and out because I kept slipping forward. I actually think the best way to play it is probably an iOS or Android tablet.
Yeah, as long as you can turn off the switchy thing, that would annoy me.
On a tablet even?
I don't know, like turning it round.
Even on a tablet, that would annoy you?
Yeah, I don't want to bother doing that. I'm too lazy for that. I don't want to move position when playing a game. I don't want to move. I barely want to move my thumbs. That's the limit I'll go to.
You're like, I'm not pressing any of the buttons at the top. Like, I only press A, B, down and left. I don't go up.
So what I do is I play with a stylus, but I have the device really far away, which means I have to move less than if it was close. So just much like that.
And you're so good as well. When you're beating people at Halo online, that's what you're doing.
Oh, playing Halo with a stylus. I was thinking of a touchscreen. You thinking I was like prodding the controller. Oh my god, that should be our next best of 3 is like playing a 1v1 game using chopsticks on a controller.
Or just using touch controls. Just using touch controls would be enough. It's still bad. Touch controls are still bad.
We're the wrong generation for them.
Yeah, true. Okay, so I think a few people joined us playing. I don't think they stuck with it.
Okay.
I know a few people in the Discord definitely beat session 1, but I think that might have been it. But Josh Iyer, the only person to write in about the game, said that he found possible Zelda references, Skyward Sword, hitting the ball of light back and at the triangle.
Also, that's when it's doing the sound like his little vocalizations.
They also said, I love the musical and tactile response to gathering the sprites. Each click harmonizes chords beautifully.
That is nice.
does.
Like when you little tap them.
Just funny.
Much nicer.
On the way here, I was thinking, like, is Joe going to try and do an impression of the sprite singing?
I didn't let you down. What should we do together? Because it does it 3 times.
I'm not doing it.
No, we alternate. Yeah,
Okay,
you go
right.
first, then you got to do 2.
No. Okay, I will. It goes like.
Anyway, shall we put the game on the list?
I'm going to edit yours back in. Anyway, let's put it on the list, shall we? Did you know we have a Patreon? Maybe you're unsure what that is.
Patreon allows you to support us directly, and in return you get exclusive stuff. Access to our Discord server, behind-the-scenes content, and an exclusive podcast series.
Your support means we can up our production and continue making fun videos. You can join us at patreon.com/the bonus points. And it has a free trial too.
Woohoo!
Okay, so we're at the list. We made a mistake last week.
Did we say that there's less games than there are?
Yeah, because Phoenix Wright was underneath the dividing bar, so I missed it. But this is actually the 72nd game now.
Okay.
Definitely. 100% correct.
Anyone else hiding, we'll find you.
Also, we had a little bit of a kerfuffle with Grand Theft Auto, didn't we, when we moved it? Can I just say there was no ill will there? Both of us just didn't realise. I did it in person. Joe edited it, didn't mention it. We just did not realise that Grand Theft Auto jumped or didn't move or whatever happened to it was an accident.
It was more how unceremoniously Portal 2 and Titanfall 2 got kicked out of the top 10. That's what really hurt me.
But it was all an accident.
Okay.
I
forgive you. I think we all forgive you, Ollie.
Okay,
we all forgive you. So one of the things that I've been thinking of since the last episode is we flirted with the idea of continuing the Doom Prey train.
Oh yeah,
up to another station.
Yeah,
and maybe knocking Alan Wake 2 down.
I think Alan Wake 2 needs to go down quite considerably.
Quite considerably.
I'm thinking maybe it shouldn't be in the top 10 anymore.
Oh really?
I just as a distance from it, I've not grown less fond of it. I think maybe the DLC really left a sour taste.
It felt like it was a very DLC.
It completely deflated my hype for Alan Wake 2.
Yeah.
Because remember I played Alan Wake 1, I played all the DLC, I went to Alan Wake 2 and I was like, this series is amazing. And then I played that next DLC and I was like, oh, is it actually amazing?
It's the best DLC that could be made with less than 10 people. Like it feels like a boss went in and we're like, okay, we're making this bigger DLC that's coming later. What can you do with this budget and like 3 months? Like what could you get right? Like what assets could you reuse? It's, and it did some interesting things in it, but yeah, that being the last thing I played of it, it was a little bit disappointing.
Also, do you remember how the combat was actually quite annoying?
The combat, it was a third person. It's actually in a way kind of a little bit similar to Sword and Sworcery, where it's the audio and visual presentation is like up way there. The game design doesn't match it. Like the game feel, just aiming and shooting, weird bugs when trying to switch between your weapons and reloading, like those sorts of things. Like maybe they've been improved, but like they weren't among the best of that genre. Like it hurts that you have such a direct comparison to like Resident Evil. And even like the progression of Resident Evil in terms of upgrading weapons and exploring is kind of almost a tier above it. It kind of hurts that they're in such a similar space, so you have such a direct comparison. Yeah,
this also in terms of comparing it to Sword and Sworcery, it has that same kind of puzzly where you're kind of just doing it as a trial and error. A lot of the ones are changing the scenes. You'd be like, I'll just change all of them until the one is correct as it clicks.
Yeah. But it looks
amazing. Yeah.
The sound.
It's cool. It's cool. But
also, I think for me, from the podcast, I spent a lot more time exploring.
Yeah.
I did like all the side stuff. I found all of the caches. I found all this and I enjoyed once you finish like the mission in the area.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed the Metroidvania side of you've got this key or you've got these bolt cutters. So now you can return and go and like spend more time in those areas, and there is like actually kind of unique stuff. And I love the puzzles that are within the environment where it's like go to the park and look at how many of these there are. Like I really enjoyed those aspects of it more than like the core linear gameplay, like the critical path.
Yeah.
And it's so cool, like the way that no, I don't want out top 10.
Okay,
not for sure. But I'm happy for the Doom Prey train to go. Let's put those up, and then we'll look at Alan Wake again where it's ended up, because its next opponent would be Death Stranding, which is currently at number 7.
I don't think it can beat Death Stranding.
I mean, it has.
No, but it can't anymore.
Wait, where did it? Was it briefly number 1?
For like a week, yeah.
For a week, it was number 1.
One episode, yeah, it was number 1.
For one before Baldur's Gate 3.
Actually, was it? No, you were like...
Did Disco
stayed
above
number
it?
1.
Okay.
And you were like, I could go either way, and I was like, let's leave Disco for now.
Okay. So it can beat Death Stranding, because it did.
Yeah, but...
It's whether it can still beat Death Stranding.
Well, now I still look back on Death Stranding and think like, God, that was one of the most joyous 2 weeks of my life playing that game. I had so much fun with it.
2 parcels have just shown up at the door, Ollie. One of them has Death Stranding 2 in, and then the other one has Alan Wake 3 in.
Yeah. Death Stranding.
You only get one.
Death Stranding, easy. Easy. What about you?
Man. Okay, so they're starting now. It's kind of the same question.
Yeah.
Starting now, either Remedy or Kojima Productions have 5 years to work on a sequel.
Yeah.
Which one do you pick then? Just because Alan Wake 2 came out so recently, I feel like it's like they both have 5 years, and it's like it's either Kojima's or Lake's dream game.
Yeah.
They've had endless budget. Which one do you take?
Probably still Death Stranding. I don't know if I can. I don't know. Alan Wake 2, I loved it. And do you know what? It's still a 10 out of 10. These are the top games on the list. I'm just looking back at all the like, oh, I'm Sam Lake and I'm in the game. And I'm like, oh, that's actually quite annoying, isn't it?
It also would be hard for them to do again, like the like Max Payne references and Quantic Break.
Was it just a game of like, you recognise this thing?
It wasn't. It was more interesting.
No,
than
it was.
And like the level of like
it was.
the layers of like how ridiculous it was. So it's the voice actor from that, but in this game, but the face of Sam Lake. But
I suppose it's the only game doing that.
Yeah, and so like that was super cool. But I think I agree with you that I want
Death Stranding 2 more.
Yeah, well, does that mean Hollow Knight can go up as well?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Deal. Okay.
I think it could go below The Last of Us Twins.
Let's because
poor Alan.
we
Alan's had a fall, hasn't he?
we make some rash decisions. Let's not put Alan Wake all the way to the dark place. And let's leave him at number 8 for now.
Yeah.
I'll celebrate another win for cheeky little Hollow Knight. That is the little dark horse here. You better watch him. We'll leave so this is the way once again, because we can't leave it alone the top 10 because frankly it's where we care the most. So we get a little nitpicky. So this is how it's all settled. So I go from 10 to 1. At number 10, we got Last of Us. At number 9, we got Last of Us Part 2. Now at number 8 is Alan Wake 2. 7 is Hollow Knight. 6 is Death Stranding. 5 is Prey. 4 is Doom. 3 is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. 2 is Disco Elysium. And still at number 1, Baldur's Gate 3.
I feel good about that. I feel really good about that.
Yeah, I wish Portal 2 was in there.
No, come on.
No, you don't think that, says Ollie.
Be real. Come on. Anyway.
Oh, be real. You like Portal 2, you freak.
God, you're so fighty today. Right, okay. Let's also, I finished Grand Theft Auto 5 since we last recorded a proper... I talked about an extra credit. Since we last recorded a proper podcast, I finished Grand Theft Auto 5. And as much as I was like, every mission is the best mission in the game over and over, I do feel like it peaked about 90% of the way through. So the last bit I did do, I was a bit like, well, whatever. So I'm happy with not moving it up. But...
Don't want to move it down. Do you want to move down? Portal 2?
I mean, Grand Theft Auto 5, as you said to me on extra credit, me saying it's the best game I've ever played is not a controversial opinion. So I think the fact that it's outside the top 10 is probably enough. It doesn't need to move down.
Okay. It's controversial enough where it is.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, let's get to Sword and Sworcery.
What's that? Oh, yeah, it's the game we played. Okay, yeah, sorry. We get so
Superbrothers Sword and Sworcery EP. Where are you thinking?
I'm thinking we better put it on the list because I'm getting EP, you know what I mean? Right. Tricky. It's so tricky because it's the problem with... So let's see where like my absolute nose would be. So I wouldn't want it above Drive of San Francisco, which always comes up. I think it's because want it higher. And so I think that's sort of like
it's almost a midpoint, really.
Yeah, very, very close to 1. So I would say I don't want it above Driver San Francisco. That's what I'll put out there. That if you want to kind of get more sport, do you agree with that for starters?
I think so. I'm struggling to find anything else on the list that you could compare it to.
Resident Evil, another game, looks and sounds great. Not very fun to control.
You say some mad stuff sometimes. You talk some mad stuff. God,
it's about as awkward to control the character. It is. Oh, come on! You're blinded. You're blinded.
Maybe it could be compared to Indica. Although Indica had a much more impressive message and story kind of hit.
Yeah.
Looked good though, Indica, didn't it?
Yeah.
Best game by less than 10 people.
But that is a good comparison. I think Indica propelled me forward a little bit more. I was more curious what's going to be around each turn. Whereas I say Sword and Sworcery is one of, if not the shortest game we've played, and also one of the most repetitive, which is quite an impressive feat to be able to do both.
Yeah. Do you know what it reminds me of as well, actually? A little bit of Zero Ranger.
Why?
I think just pixely, artistic, great sounding. Obviously, the gameplay fell short on Sword of the Sorcery, whereas I guess nothing really fell short on Zero Ranger. It was pretty solid, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's surprising. I mean, Super Metroid might be a bit closer, whereas I think it had better gameplay, but it's really, I think, the atmosphere that really propels it. I found Super Metroid a little bit tough to go back to, not having played it before and having no nostalgia for it. I think it's one of the ones that's super impressive for its day, but I think people that are nostalgic for it can probably overlook some of the shortcomings. And if it's something, you've played it before and you kind of, sometimes it's just too obtuse, you just don't know where to go. And the maps doesn't help.
Yeah, true. I think, for me, the upper limit would have to be Jet Set Radio Future. I think that's where I would draw the line.
Okay, I mean, that's higher than my line.
Yeah, it is, yeah. I think I have an interest in contemporary art and also have an interest in, electronic ambient music as well. So both those things, I was like, I'm already interested in these things, so I'm obviously going to enjoy it more. Maybe somewhere between those two, between 40 and 33. I mean, down at that point, I don't know if it matters so much when it's down below 25, but still, let's give it its flowers and put it in the right place.
I think what it matters against is it's immediate neighbors. It's can we find a thing that it's in our opinion, we enjoyed less than this and more than that? Can we find the perfect sandwich for it?
Mr. Driller and League of Legends?
It's just the most three bonkers game to compare. What you play tonight? Superbrothers Sword and Sworcery EP, or do you want to jump on League? What? What are you doing?
I think between those two is the perfect amount of fun that I had. Although Mr. Driller is utter joy, but it's so short.
I mean, I could probably put League down a bit.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think
we had Frank on. He was so charismatic.
I know. I think that's why we ended up putting him a bit higher, because we couldn't upset him.
Okay,
he's
I'll tell
so
you what.
lovely.
Why don't we put Sword and Sworcery in there, where League is, and then let's quickly discuss where League should actually go, because I think Sword and Sworcery fits well there. One above Forgotten City as well. I quite like that.
Okay. Yeah. Ooh, I wouldn't mind Forgotten City one above it. Would you mind it going one above it?
No, I always have a soft spot for Forgotten City because it's episode 1.
Okay.
There you go. So now
the not so Forgotten City, seeing as we keep going on about it. League of Legends needs a new home.
Yeah.
Can I go back to my line and say not above Driver San Francisco?
Is that you'd only put it down 2 places?
Well, I'm just saying that I wouldn't want it above Driver San Francisco. So if I was going to choose specifically, and once again, for those that haven't watched a lot of these and heard the explanation, this isn't the list of what we're ranking as the best games of all time. It's how much did we personally enjoy them. And Ollie and I simply aren't MOBA games players. Ollie, until recently, who had a character change, hasn't really played PvP online games a huge amount anyway.
I saw it described on another podcast. They do something similar to us. That they said that you have to think of them as tourists. So they're tourists, going into League of Legends 2 weeks, going into World of Warcraft 2 weeks. You're not really living it like a lot of people do. Anyway, sorry, go on.
Yeah, so that's just to clarify for League players. We appreciate it. We love the esports scene and the spin-offs and everything. Arcane is great.
I love it. I don't know. I don't know anything about it.
I do. Like we watched like the openings of the like their big league tournaments, like all the AR stuff they do with like dragons coming over the crowd, or like I think I've said it in the podcast, I compare it to the Overwatch League when they had like DJ Khaled come out and I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then for the Overwatch League one, they had like
the league one, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, the league one. Yeah. Sorry, they had like the characters from the game come out in like an AR like thing. Okay. Obviously, like super nerdy, whatever. But like it's like, but that's what they're fans of. And then like the players coming out on like podiums throughout the crowd, and everyone like freaking out about the players rather than like we got the famous guy. And during the show brags that he's doing another show in like another city after this. From it's like ugh. It's like so. I'm like why are we watching this anyway?
It doesn't matter.
Super off topic. I think under Halo Infinite.
Above Ridge Racer?
Yeah.
That's another dear to me episode, that one. I just think about the episode and we had a lot. I like talking about Ridge Racer. We did it with good justice, you know?
Well, so speaking of Ridge Racer, we mentioned in that episode the fancy Namco controller where you like twist it to steer.
The Negicon.
The Negicon. I had a little play on a Negicon over the weekend and it's great.
It's great.
It works like yeah, I think it's better than an analog stick.
That's
for steering. Like obviously, like a driving wheel is better, but like having for a PS1 game, and I was playing. I think it was the first. It was the one that didn't look as good as this
from the
one.
picture. It was the first one.
Yeah, like the graphics weren't anywhere near as good, but like having like analog controls and steering and like with drifting as well, like it works. Like it feels a bit weird. It works really, really well.
Enough to move it up above League of Legends.
No, it's tough. Like League of Legends is such an institution, and like Ridge Racer 4 is like probably one of the most solid PS1 racing games.
Yeah, it also had that special shading technique, which is super nerdy, but they still use that.
Yeah, it had a cool style in that, but I think League is too much of like a game changer, and really, as much as we've grown, it really kind of set up the free-to-play genre of games or monetization style of games, and kind of did it in like a pretty decent way and showed the way that it can work.
Yeah.
And we do moan about free-to-play games, but like there's a lot of the best online games recently have been free-to-play games. Like I've enjoyed playing the finals a whole bunch this year. We played a little bit of Valorant and stuff. Like it kind of set that standard.
How'd you feel about it knocking Skyrim down into 51?
I don't care.
Oh, that's fair enough. I don't care.
That was another tourist episode, wasn't it?
Yeah,
the Skyrim one.
Look, something's got to go down when something gets added to the list.
We need something on the list just so when normies show up, they can just look at it and go like, oh, this isn't for us. They got Skyrim at 51. They call themselves gamers. They got Skyrim at 51. Then we can get rid of the normies. Yeah. And then us freaks can chat about all of our weird video games. Superbrothers Sword and Sworcery EP this week, guys.
Oh, God. Yeah, me, you, and the two people that watch this episode are going to really like that one.
Portal 2 on the top 10. I laugh at your Portal 2. Made by Valve. I don't know. They probably got more than 10 employees, so we won't play their game.
I can't believe what Cappy was saying was so like respectable and self-assured, and we completely flipped it into like the absolute worst thing.
I think maybe it was probably like among like their peers and journalists of the time. Like I think that was probably absolutely a thing. But I kind of think for progress to be made to like get rid of that like stigma of indie games, it doesn't need to be like consider us a AAA game. It needs to be like, let's not consider a difference between game budgets and team sizes when critiquing a game. You know, like sometimes if it's like, oh, this super small team has made like this massive multiplayer first person shooter, isn't it? You know, I say like a No Man's Sky comes out and it's like, you know, like for what it ended up being, it's like that was made by an indie studio. Like you'd never like it's so but look at them punching above their weight and it working out. Like there's like that sort of story, but in terms of like just general critiquing of a game, like I don't think like for both reasons I don't think that's like an excuse a smaller team side because it's almost not your problem if you're critiquing a game.
Yeah, of course.
You can bear it in mind, but then also I don't think that should be like like something you're striving to be AAA. Because I think you can just be a masterpiece indie game, and that should be enough.
Yeah, I think the interview was from literally like 2011. Like
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
really
I
old,
could imagine that more so.
Anyway, so after all that list messing around,
Longer than the podcast, I think.
Sword and Sworcery EP ended up at 38.
Sorry, I just keep thinking of like EP. Like,
EP, yeah.
I'm so EP.
It's 38, so it's Mr. Driller Drill Land at 36, then Forgotten City, then Sword and Sorcery, then Resident Evil, then Driver San Francisco, and now League. I've lost it. I don't even know where it is now. Oh, there it is, 44. So that's Splinter Cell Blacklist at 41, then Phoenix Wright, then Halo Infinite, then League of Legends, then Ridge Racer Type 4.
And LA Noire is running out of room on the screen down at 72.
Yeah, it's running out of room on the screen, isn't it? Maybe it's 75. Maybe something will happen. I don't know. Guess we'll find out.
Oh, don't tease me like that, Ali. You know you're allowed.
Well, I guess it'll be 76.
I can't handle it. Anyway, that's it for our chat about Sword and Sorcery. Is there anything else that you want to update about what's going on with the bonus points?
We mean other than it's still fantastic and you should join the Patreon because it's great and extra credit's great. That's it, really.
Okay.
Well, I suppose I don't want to promise anything, but we've basically both been really busy, which is partly why we've been doing lots of really short games in a row. And hopefully that period is kind of coming to an end now. So obviously next up we've got Plucky Squire, which isn't even out yet. That's 10 hours, they've already said. Then after that we've got Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster on the 18th of October. That's probably about 15 hours. But anyway, hopefully we have time to do some other stuff too. So.
Yeah, and we've been managing to kind of play some other games as well. I spoke about Astrobot on the last extra credit episode. I'll probably talk about it more on the next episode as well, because that's kind of been all of my other gaming time aside from this. But yeah, that is going to be the end of this episode here. As always, thanks so much for watching or listening and taking the chance on this kind of weird little game and deciding to click on this video and watch to the very end, or keep listening to the audio podcast. It's people like you that we do this, this sort of thing for.
You're the cool ones.
Ones.
If you watch this episode, even if you only watched 10 minutes, you're one of the cool ones.
You're one of the cool ones. It's a weird 10 minutes if you only watch the ending, though. I will say that.
People do that. They've not seen the list.
Anyway, cheers for watching, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.